No, do not call me anymore. It's none of my business. How am I supposed to record a lecture for the students now? Feeling completely broken. I'm gonna go nuts if I don't take my pills. Fuck. Where are my meds? Alright. Now I can go get the camera. Oh, this place is starting to look like a garbage dump. Well, I hope I won't forget to press the record button this time. It's locked. Let's move on straight to our deceased. I'm wondering how the new tripod is going to work. Just frame it properly and... Oh, this should be fine. November 21st, 1991. Time, 8:43 p.m. Recording for medical students from the universe. Well, who do we have here today? Mention the rookie mistakes. Oh yeah, that's right. That's my warrant to sensify you for a few issues. First, due to the fact that in the process of revealing and securing forensic traces, interference that changes the primary condition happens. The photographic documentation plays a huge role in the entire process of examination. Then, the body needs to be placed on its back on the autopsy table. The pathomorphologist stands on the left-hand side of the body. Third, very rarely but still, the cause of death remains unknown if all the tests come out negative. That's the so-called white autopsy. Now remember that it can also happen. Found on the outskirts of a parking lot near a gas station, where he often begged and insistently offered to clean the windows of cars that were leaving the station. The body was found in a dry field drain. A frequent cause of traumatic deaths among the elderly is the various types of accidents, including traffic accidents or falling down the stairs. The body was spotted by a station worker during the morning shift. At first, he thought that someone had thrown rain boots and a coat in a nearby ditch. It took him a moment to recognize a human body laying on its back. Signs of libation could be found around the dead body. Empty bottles, traces of an inept attempt to start a fire, and a scattered makeshift blanket. The deceased is locally known as Old Toby. Homeless and unemployed for at least a couple years. He had gotten into fights and had been bullied by the problematic youth of the town. He was that type of a man who never kept up alcohol, which caused him to be homeless. As a young man working in a suburban coal mine most of his life, he already abused alcohol, and as the time went by, he'd fall into addiction more. Oh, that's interesting. Although alcohol poisoning as a sole cause of death among the elderly people is relatively rare, different levels of alcohol poisoning happen among 1 in 4 deaths of elderly people, which may suggest that alcohol abuse is a significant issue in this age group. What is important to note, even though alcohol poisoning does not cause death, it does increase the risk of accidents and their following injuries. The body was found at 7 o'clock by Sheriff Matthew Thompson. White male, 76 kilograms, 5'8", age unknown. The deceased is a local homeless man named Toby Chambers. His son runs a hardware store. His wife ran away years ago. Local police have talked to residents, so we know more about the deceased. For example, that he loved drinking, and by no means was abstinent. Such clues can direct us to things that are worth keeping in mind during the autopsy. Mention the rookie found on the outskirts of the body with a freak. The body it took side empty. Oh, where are the damn gloves? Now we can get to work. We're going to need the camera. It should be here somewhere. Must have left it in one of the drawers. Let's follow the procedure and prepare photo documentation. Before we start searching for traces on the deceased's body, we need to take a basic photo that goes in the files. Voila! Now we move on to the next step, trace search. We're going to need better zoom here. More, and that's perfect. People affected by homelessness most often die from accidents, alcohol abuse, or they freeze to death. Unfortunately, both suicide and homicide are also quite common. Well, you don't have to stand close to be able to smell a strong odor of alcohol. While taking the photos, some entries that could be potentially lethal caught my attention. Let's take a closer look using the magnifying glass. I don't need this tool now. An old wound that hadn't healed properly. It must have been some kind of burn or other injury. Nevertheless, it has nothing to do with the potential cause of death. By the look of his feet, I assume Toby must have worn uncomfortable and dinky shoes for quite a while. However, such wounds have nothing to do with his death. There are frostbite marks all over the deceased's body. Although they are most visible on the tips of his fingers, they can be recognized by the very specific color of the skin. However, the hands tell us much more. That's something interesting. While making photographic documentation, ecchymosis can be seen on the deceased man's head. The appearance indicates the intravital nature of the wound. We'll come back later to see if everything is all right with the brain. What do we have here? Yeah, the odor can be the result of alcohol intoxication. The condition of the head tells us it could have been a fatal accident. It could be freezing to death. By the look of his feet, I assume Toby must have worn uncomfortable and dinky shoes for quite a while. However, such wounds have nothing to do with a frequent cause of traumatic deaths among the elderly. An old wound that hadn't healed properly. It must have been some kind of burn or other injury. Nevertheless, it has nothing to do with the potential cause of death. At this point, that's all I can do based on all traces on the body of the deceased. The inside should tell me much more. Let's move back to the body. Now let's check the level of muscle tension. This will allow us to establish time of death. Let's raise the deceased's hand. And then let go. The stronger the rigor mortis gets, the greater the resistance from the muscles will be. As you can see, the hand falls loose. The rigor mortis has already subsided. We can then assume that the time of death stated in the files is correct. Let's grab a scalpel. You can boldly cut with the scalpel. It won't hurt him no more. We always start with the neck. and move down towards the symphysis pubis. The incision should be deep. Next, we separate the skin and prepare to remove the ribs. I don't need this tool now. The adipose tissue has an intense yellow hue. As you probably already guessed, we're going to need the scissors. After removing both cartilage and bone tissues, we are actually interested in two things that you can see at the very first glance. The lack of organ congestion means that, although the deceased was cold, hypothermia wasn't the cause of death. We can eliminate freezing as the cause of death. The deceased smoked like a chimney. Let's take a closer look. We see widespread black and tarry deposits caused by smoking cigarettes. Despite the tragic condition of the lungs, they are not the cause of death. Now we need to go grab the syringe. At this point, we move on to collecting blood from the heart. 5 milliliters from the left ventricle should do it. Now, we prick the bladder and draw about 10 milliliters of fluid. We also collect the fluid from the deceased to determine the level of alcohol concentration in the... Keep in mind that you have to set the right time and speed on both knobs before running the centrifuge. Our samples may break into pieces due to the centrifugal force if we set up the wrong coordinates. I myself am terrible with numbers because I suffer from dyscalculia, which is why I always keep the appropriate coordinates at hand. Damn it. If something goes to shit, it's on the way. That's probably the blown fuses again. Hold up, I must have had a flashlight somewhere. And I was hoping to clock out early today. What was that? Where did it go? Yeah, it's definitely the fuses. Right goes first, left next. Voila! Where's that unbearable noise coming from? That's strange. I'm pretty sure I closed the window. The homeless probably misses me already. Alright, where were we? Oh yeah, the blood alcohol concentration. Well, everything is telling us that the BAC, blood alcohol concentration, is high, hence the smell we're getting from the deceased. Still, to be 100% sure, I have to send the samples to the lab. Unfortunately, I don't have the equipment to conduct a detailed analysis here. Now let's take a closer look at the stomach. As expected, the stomach has no major external damage. In this case, further inspection is no use. We must cut him open.